Hello, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. You've noticed lately I'm wearing my headset a lot more. Well, that's because when I have my big external microphone here, I have to talk really loud or talk really loudly if I'm going to use correct grammar in order to project my voice enough to be heard. After a while, that really begins to wear on your voice. So I've decided that a lot more these days I'm going to end up using this headset for the live videos. It really is a lot easier and it's a pretty decent microphone. So, number one, I don't know if anybody's here yet. Okay, so feel free to say hello. Let me know that you're here. Before I get going on talking about some of the things that we're going to talk about today, which really mainly are based upon your questions. Okay. But of course, until I know somebody's here, what's the point in talking about stuff, especially when you don't know if anybody's watching? Okay. So, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and twiddle my thumbs. So, what am I going to do instead? Let's make some small talk. Gee, isn't the weather, really lovely today? Um, at the same time, nobody's seeming to say anything. So I'm wondering if there's perhaps a problem. No, everybody's beginning to appear a little bit now. So if you're here, just kind of chime in, even if you're just saying a quick hello, just so I know that I'm not just talking to myself. There we go. We've got somebody else there. Okay, that's always good to know. I'm going to talk about the format here in a minute, but while I'm waiting for more people to get here to kind of talk about the format, any general questions you might have, you can please feel free to post them in the comments section. Please do know I can't get to everybody's questions. It doesn't mean, necessarily that I'm ignoring you. It's just that I can't answer, obviously, every single question that's popping up on the screen. Hello, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for saying hello and for tuning in. Thank you all for watching. Here's a question while we're waiting for everybody. How many of you subscribe to my YouTube channel? If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, if you can say that you do, that would be a helpful thing. Yeah. So please let me know if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. The reason I'm asking is I've had some complaints from people who subscribe to my YouTube channel saying that they're not getting notifications when I go live. And so I'm just kind of trying to check up on that. So if you are a subscriber, can you please also let me know if you receive notifications when I go live, or if you're just picking up the notifications from when I post it on Facebook? That's also something that would be helpful for me to know. And once we do that, yeah, the bell is on. I know all that stuff. But just let me know, everyone, if you are getting notifications. Good. At least somebody is. Okay. Because some people have told me that they haven't. Okay. Well, enough people are popping in here. So I think that we can talk a little bit about the format. So generally, this is a special Nakshatra edition of the question and answer session. It's geared for you to ask specific questions about nakshatras. But let's talk a little bit about the rules of the road, so to speak. I'm not here to answer questions about your particular nakshatra configurations. Basically, I'm a professional, and so I keep interpretation separate for two reasons: because I'm a professional. Well, several reasons really. And the other reason is doing a quick interpretation of your chart. I'm not looking at all the other factors that are interacting, and all those factors really are important. But general nakshatra questions are all invited. In addition to that, I may not be able to answer every single question that you may have about nakshatras, because different astrologers use different techniques for nakshatras. Okay. I have my own very specific techniques that I use that I've been working with, for years and years and years. And they are, really work well for me. What can I say? Do nakshatras have gunas? Nakshatras do have gunas, but traditionally in the ancient texts, most especially like Tayatiriya Brahmana, there's not really much written on that. Okay. Most of the times, the significations that you're seeing written for nakshatras give three different guna associations for each nakshatra, like three different levels. Like, for instance, Ashwini nakshatra is Rajasic, Rajasic, Rajasic. Okay, and Bharani nakshatra is Rajasic, Rajasic, Tamasic, etc., etc. Okay. Um, Different in padas. I'm not really sure what you mean by that question. Okay, so here's another question. Are D9 nakshatras the same as D1 nakshatras for the planets, or do they vary between charts? Different astrologers will tell you different things dependent upon what they work with. In my opinion, the nakshatras are astronomical by nature because they're related to the fixed stars. Okay, so since they're related to the fixed stars and they're related to the astronomical side of astrology, the only Varga chart that actual astronomy is happening in is the Rashi chart or the main birth chart. All the other Varga charts are a division of that Rashi chart, but the actual astronomy is in the Rashi chart. So I'm of the opinion that we're meant to keep the nakshatra positions from the Rashi chart and carry that over to every single Varga chart. So, for instance, if a planet is in Mrigashira nakshatra, even if in another Varga chart it happens to be in Scorpio, it's still in Mrigashira nakshatra. Why? Because nakshatras in the zodiac are two different things. And number two, because the nakshatras are astronomically related. Okay. But that's my opinion on it, and I know different people do different things. Do Mula Nakshatra people have troubled married life? There's no straight rules across the board. If that person has a strong Venus, strong ninth house, um, um, just strong marriage factors in their chart, it's not going to necessarily make a troubled married life for them. So you have to understand that it's various things in a chart that create these things. You can't say straight across the board, this nakshatra creates marriage difficulty. If you say that, you'll probably be inaccurate. Okay. Why, why Mercury and Ketu nakshatras are considered inauspicious? I don't know why they're considered inauspicious because to be quite honest, I'm going to use the phrase, I find that to be a load of claptrap. Okay. I don't believe there are any inauspicious nakshatras. There may be inauspicious nakshatras to do certain things, like on a certain day, certain nakshatras are not so good. But in terms of things in your natal chart, it's not that nakshatras are bad or good, because a lot of that depends upon the planet that's in the nakshatra and the planet that's associated with the nakshatra. Okay. Why do factors going into Uttada Ashadha give later victory? Because basically Uttada Ashadha means the latter victory. Okay, it's so basically things that in Uttada Ashadha are associated with a strong sense of determination that bear fruit later on in life or bear fruit later on down the road. Okay. Okay, so somebody's asking a question. Is Venus still considered debilitated in Hasta Nakshatra? A planet is not necessarily debilitated in a nakshatra because debilitation is a Rashi related concept, and the nakshatras and the Rashis really are two separate things that are mapped onto each other. Okay, best way to understand debilitation is Venus is debilitated in Virgo. Okay, that's the best way to do it. Please write a book. I plan on that at some point. It's like in between consultations, though, in classes, sometimes it's really hard for me to put things down. But with my most recent Nakshatra class, I put together a framework that can very easily be turned into a book. And that's one of my plans. Okay. Okay. So let's see what we've got here. Let's see if I can find a question that's good to answer. Okay, so let's see. Some of you are asking questions that are very broad and maybe need to be, pardon me, a little more defined. Okay. Okay, please don't ask me to block other people. If somebody proves themselves as being troublesome, then I will block them. Okay, but if you're coming on here to have a go at each other, can you please just not come on here to do that? That would be better. Okay. Okay, so somebody said, good question about Pusha Nakshatra. Well, let's find the other person's question about Pusha Nakshatra. How do nakshatras play into dasha? For example, if I'm Saturn in Pusha dasha. You mean Saturn in Pusha Nakshatra? I'm not really sure I understand your question. So can you please clarify? Thank you. Let's see what we've got here. So I'm not here to answer your horoscope questions about your own chart. Please understand that, so if you want me to do that, please go schedule a consultation formally. Does life for Pusha Nakshatra natives change after 36? I think anybody's life can change at any certain age, and there are specific ages where the planets mature. Some astrologers work with systems where the nakshatras mature. It's not a part of the system that I work with because I have other ways of determining things through nakshatras and rashis and dashas that make it so that I don't really need to go into these general, almost like yoga type rules for the nakshatras because I find those things don't always bear their fruit. Okay. Should we concentrate on our ascendant moon or ascendant lord nakshatra? You should concentrate on all of them. All of them are meaningful, and also all the nakshatras of every single planet that you have in your horoscope. Those are all very meaningful. Why? Let's talk about that for a second, and I'll come back to some questions. The nakshatras relate to how we grow our consciousness in relation to a planet, or if you work with house cusps in relation to a house cusp, it determines how we're going to grow things. So just limiting your understanding of nakshatras to the moon nakshatra, the ascendant nakshatra, or the lord of the ascendant nakshatra, you're really limiting your understanding of your own horoscope. Okay. Let's see. Why is Saturn considered tough in Pusha Nakshatra while it's the lord of it? Okay, so first of all, a planet in its own nakshatra doesn't necessarily mean that the planet is strengthened. So let's first understand the whole concept of planet connections with nakshatras, or planet rulers of nakshatras as they're sometimes referred to. First of all, there's no rulers of nakshatras. There are planets that are associated with nakshatras. Why are they associated with nakshatras? Well, with Vimshottari dasha, in order to understand what dasha a person enters life in, we need to understand a particular planet as being connected to a nakshatra, like K2 for Ashwini and K2 for Mula, right? But when you work with different dashas, there are different planetary associations. I don't like the concept of planetary ruler of the nakshatra or dispositor of the nakshatra. A better term is emissary, because it's like the planets work as messengers for the nakshatra. And the thing is like if you're a king and you have a messenger and you send that messenger to give a message to another king in another village, if that messenger is a good messenger, he'll transmit the message very well. If he's a lousy messenger, he'll get your message all bumbled up. That's kind of how planets that are associated with the nakshatras work. But the nakshatras themselves are associated with deities and not rulers, so to speak. Okay, but we commonly call them rulers, but really a more appropriate way of understanding it is it's almost like the planet is a messenger for the nakshatra. And so, of course, the planet that's associated with the nakshatra, like the K2 nakshatras or the Mars nakshatras, of course, that planet's well being is going to be important. But in terms of a planet being in its own nakshatra, it doesn't work like a planet in its own sign. It doesn't work that way. Okay. And if you've got Saturn In Pusha Nakshatra, then dependent upon what zodiac you're using, tropical or sidereal, it can be in Cancer or sometimes a little bit further into Leo. And in either of those signs, Saturn's not going to be in the best state. Its dignity is not going to be so good, and so that's not a really good position for Saturn. Okay. Okay, so let's see what else we've got. Do I look at nakshatras for outer planets? I've done that before, but I find that if you're using Rahu and Ketu fairly well, then you don't really have a need to look at the outer planets, because unless you're dealing with a major transit. Okay. So, by the way, if you're interested in scheduling a consultation with me, please feel free to visit my astrological services page at the link that I'm going to give you right now. I do believe I have some slots available as early as the 30th if you want to schedule or if you want to book with me. Okay. So does Abhijit Nakshatra exist? Abhijit Nakshatra really is part of Uttada Ashadha Nakshatra, in my personal opinion. Okay. And when you read the sutras on each of the nakshatras from Tayatiriya Brahmana, it becomes a little more apparent, because basically in the sutra for Uttada Ashadha Nakshatra, it does use Abhijit as part of it. Okay. Pusha is caring and abundant nakshatra, if you understand it correctly. It's a little more than that. People give a lot of generalizations for the nakshatras, but the nakshatras are multifaceted and they have several different energies associated with them, and you really have to delve deeply into them to understand them deeply. But in terms of why a caring and abundant nakshatra would be ruled by Saturn, well, if we're going to care for something or for someone, and if we're going to have abundance in our life, sometimes we have to make a sacrifice, or sometimes we have to practice discipline, or sometimes we have to accept things, all of which can be qualities of Saturn. Okay. So let's see some other questions. So, what is the importance of Ketu nakshatra placement in the birth chart? Well, Ketu relates to our security paradigm as we're coming into this life. And generally, it's something we're carrying over from a previous lifetime. So, on a certain level, it's the main focus of how we were growing our karma in a previous lifetime. Because again, the nakshatras relate to how we grow things. Okay. And the way that we grow our K2 is the way that we're, growing our tendencies from a previous lifetime. It's also the main way we tend to react and how we're focusing on growing that, or the manner in which we're playing out our growth in it. Good things to look at are the Mula, Jiva, and Dhatu associations of the nakshatra. Okay. Mula nakshatras, those people generally have looked for support in a previous, or looked for nourishment in a previous lifetime, or weren't nourished by their path, or are looking to nourish other people. Dhatu nakshatras, those individuals either were very supportive of something or walked a path where they didn't get the support that they wanted. Jiva nakshatras, those people could have been a little more assertive, perhaps even dominant in previous lifetimes, or somewhat submissive to other people. A lot of different factors come into the equation in order to determine that. And those are just some vast generalizations, but it gives you some general ideas. Okay. So let's see what we've got going on here. What nakshatra placement represents the self the most beautiful? I'm not sure if I understand what you mean by that. Perhaps if you could explain your question a little bit more. Okay, so let's see what else we've got. Okay, don't come on here, please, and try to, be difficult and like call people out and have a go at people and things like that. Because what's going to happen if you do that is I'm going to do what I'm doing to somebody right now, which is remove you. Okay. So let's see what else we've got here. Okay, so if I'm quiet, I'm just reading some of your questions. What nakshatra placement represents the self the most? Well, the self has many different aspects. Okay, so all the nakshatras, all the planets, the nakshatras that they're in, really are going to give a understanding of the self. Okay, so in different people, different factors may predominate. So, for instance, if you've got a strong Lagna Lord, that factor may predominate more so than any other. Okay. If you've got a strong moon or a strong moon nakshatra, that factor might predominate. If you've got a strong sun, that might predominate. But really, on a certain level, we're dealing with different aspects of the self when we're talking about the ascendant, the moon, and the sun. Okay. They kind of cross over in some areas, but they're generally different concepts. So the moon relates to our manas or our sensory mind. It's our subjective experience of consciousness. It's our sensory mind, how we sense things. The lagna is like the path of the self, the individual themselves, whereas the sun is more like the atman or the soul of the person, and it will generally tend to show what the person will sacrifice for, the things that they uphold. So we're looking at different aspects of the self when we're looking at all of these things, and so the nakshatras of those are of course going to show different things. So there's not really one nakshatra that's straight across the board would show more of the true self than any other, because it depends upon the strength of the planets involved in terms of which is going to be predominant, as well as which dasha a person's in. Okay, let's see what other questions people have. And that's just kind of a brief um, summary of that whole concept. I could probably talk about that for a whole video. Okay, but I wanted to keep it short. Okay, so just looking at some things. Or moon nakshatra. Sun nakshatra important or moon nakshatra? They're both important, just various different reasons. Okay, most people tend to gravitate more towards the moon nakshatras, but every single planet is going to be important. Which nakshatra turns most spiritual with the Atmakarika planet in it? It depends upon the horoscope. I mean, you can't really say that. So, you could say the Atmakarika is in Revati. Oh boy, that's going to make the person the most spiritual. But if they've got a weak Mercury, they're going to be overly sensitive. And they're also going to likely think that everybody should follow the same path that they do, because Revati is a Jiva nakshatra. So there are lessons we have to learn from each particular nakshatra, and it's not necessarily that one is more spiritual than any other. Okay. Okay, so let's see what else we've got. Is somebody asking about the nakshatra the Aruda Lagna is in, or is somebody asking about Ardra nakshatra? So can you let me know and clarify which of those you're actually asking, please? Okay, so let's see what other questions are here. So somebody's saying, okay, can everybody hold on a second? I've got somebody knocking at my door. I'm just going to mute my microphone for a moment. Sorry about that. Okay, let's see what other questions are here. Okay, so let's see. Chitra can be creative, but really any nakshatra can be creative, okay? Please talk on relationships with Aruda Lagna and the ascendant. I don't understand the question. Okay, so please, with some of your questions that you're asking, can you please clarify? Okay, so I'm probably here for another 5 minutes, and then I have to go off in order to prepare for a consultation. So let's just see what we've got here. Can handle probably another 2 or 3 questions. Okay, let's see. So again, I'm not here to interpret your horoscope for you. Just any general questions about nakshatras. Okay. Jupiter in Ardra nakshatra. Planets in the same nakshatra. Well, on a certain level, that functions like a conjunction. Okay, and both of those planets will influence each other as well as give tones to the overall nakshatra energy. What is the significance of Gandanta nakshatras? This is going to be the last question I answer. So, with Gandanta nakshatras, what's happening is there's a transition in energy, okay? Because the Gandanta points signify a shift between the Rajasic nakshatras to the Tamasic nakshatras, and the Tamasic nakshatras to the Sattvic nakshatras, and the Sattvic nakshatras back to the Rajasic nakshatras. So generally, they're understood as being difficult because a transitional energy is going on where there's a mix between the general overall energy. So, like, there's a shift between Rajasic and Tamasic energy. Okay, or the energy of desire and the energy of density. So you can have a desire for something, but you're meeting an obstruction. Or there's a mix between tamasic energy, which sees a problem, and then sattvic energy, which realizes the answer to that problem, but then turns it back into a problem again. Okay, so there's a general mix overall with the energies. And when that happens, it's creating a lot of confusion for the individual. But the things that help to make that not be so difficult in a person's chart is whether or not the person has a decently strong Mercury. And if there's a good, strong Mercury in the chart, the Gandanta points are not so difficult. Okay, so that's going to be the last question I can handle today. So thank you a lot for attending. We'll try to do this again sometime soon when I have a little more time, and we'll do a longer edition of it. Okay, thanks a lot for watching today. And as always, please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.